The following is intended only for mature audiences.
Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
And I had COVID.
What? Oh no!
Yeah. Did you tell me that? Yeah, you did tell me that. I saw that.
Yes, because you made mention of it. You texted me like, hey, so how are you feeling after all that? Because I've been paying attention to what you put on Facebook about the journal. Mm-hmm. Like, I was documenting every day of it.
Well, not every day, but yeah, you were given...
I was given basically updates for each day that I had it. And so here's what happened. I said I didn't want the vaccination, and I'm still fine in hindsight having said that when I did. I turned it down 3 fucking times at work. Could have got it, free. But I didn't. Because I'm like, it's too new. I'm really dubious of the technology to whiz-bang this fucking thing together.
Yeah, that's one of my reasons.
Because it took them almost 40 years to get a polio vaccine. And it's been 37 years, and they still haven't come up with any sort of vaccine for HIV, mostly because of the biologistics of it. The way that HIV likes to hide in the body, but also keep, dominating your whole system. Anyways, I just thought, they came up with this way too quick. I don't want to be a guinea pig. That's the way I was mocking people. Like, you don't get this. They're beta testing this shit in real time on you. They can say they did clinical trials, but those are people that signed up, not just any old jagoff they offer it to.
Yeah, even clinical trials and anything else usually last for years.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, well, we got a year to get this under control, so this is going to work out just fine.
And I don't know if we had the Pfizer or the Moderna at work, but whatever. So I didn't get it. I used to work different hours. Now all my days are the same hours, all 5 of them in a row. Mm-hmm. Second shift hours. I used to have one very early morning. It was always my day 1. I would work 6 o'clock to 2:30. And I remember being there one day and I hadn't slept like shit. The reason being is when I have to wake up really early, my brain won't shut off out of fear that I'm going to sleep through my alarm. It's very hard for me to shut my brain off. Unless I'm consistently waking up at the same time every day for work, I get really fucking anxious about it because I don't want to be late and get in trouble, obviously.
That's like when I worked in the private industry and I had to do a road closure by like 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever, or shut down 35W at midnight on a Friday night. Like, I'd go home and try to get a few hours of sleep before I went back to work.
But
and
you can't rest comfortably.
Could. I'm constantly, it's like, all right, I get there, I got to set the southbound, and I got this sign right here, and I got to make sure I get the ramps coming on 62, and, and it's just running it through my head so when I get there, I don't forget anything, because that would be a fucking disaster. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like, I would get maybe an hour and a half of sleep. And then I close it by midnight, and I'm done at 6 in the morning. So, yay, I got, in 24 hours, an hour and a half of sleep.
Yeah, that's gross. So anyways, that Thursday I was dead on my ass because I hadn't slept like shit. That night I slept shitty again, so Friday I'm kind of dragging ass. Saturday I had slept pretty decent into that day, but I'm still kind of fatigued. And then by Sunday I'm like, what the fuck is going on that I feel so goddamn run down? Now I hadn't stopped working out per usual. I'd been hitting it pretty heavy. I just figured, I don't know, maybe I'm just really stressed out with everything going on with the Beast and the CPS case that's still going on and the distance learning shit. Maybe I'm just run down more than usual. Because one bad night of sleep for me can spiral into several days of bad sleep because of the amount of kids that I have and all the various bullshit that I have to deal with. Mm-hmm. I remember distinctly on Sunday walking at one point, just kind of put my hand on the wall. I'm like, am I going to fucking pass out? Like, I felt kind of dizzy.
Yeah.
And I went home and I slept my ass off. Monday I woke up and, I was sore. like my muscles and my legs were sore. Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. It had just been leg day, and I hit it hard. So I'm like, well, this is just usual. My back is usually a little tender when I wake up if I sleep funny. And my legs are sore because I worked out really hard yesterday. Monday was my Friday for work. It's Tuesday. I feel kind of weird. You know when you're coming down with something, you kind of feel it in your eyes first? You know what I'm talking about? Your eyes feel dry and burny, like your body's like, ugh.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel my head when it gets like that, my head just feels light. That's when I know like I'm about to come down with a fever or something.
I just feel like I hadn't slept. Like my eyes get that burny feeling. Like when I used to work overnights a lot, I'd have to stay up for a few hours the next day. And my boss called me, and I was in the parking lot at Target. He's like, hey, we got an open overnight tonight, and I'm just wondering if you want to pick up some OT. I'm like, here's the thing. I don't feel good, and I'm going to go get myself tested. He's like, oh, shit. I'm like, yeah. And the wife is looking for a place when you go get tested. I had to drive 25 minutes to find a place where you just pull up into a tent and they swab your nostrils.
Yep, that's how I got my test.
It was the shallow test, so it tickled a bit.
Oh, mine was deep.
Oh, they didn't go too deep on me.
I didn't go to touch my brain, but it was definitely at least an inch of that frickin' thing she shoved up there.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, we're going to do this for 15 seconds each nostril. I was like,
15 seconds?
I'm trying not to sneeze.
I got 5.
No, mine was 15 seconds.
Wow, you got date raped by comparison.
Yeah. But it gave me a negative result, and I had it within an hour.
Oh, I had mine within 20 minutes, and it was positive. And I went, fuck. And then the wife's like, well, I guess I better go get tested. And then she went, and she was negative.
But that happened to M&T.
Oh, yeah?
That happened to them.
Yeah. Big Mark, who had been in the show,
No.
had his wife. So anyways, I call the boss. I tell him, he's like, fuck. I'm like, yeah. So would you notify HR to call me, please? Because I want to know what the protocol is here. And he's like, yeah, we'll have one of the nurses call you. She calls me the next day. She says, you're out for X amount. Like, I couldn't go back to work. I tested on March 30th. I couldn't go back till April 10th. I was out of work from when I had been there last to when I got there again, 12 days.
Fuck, was that long ago already?
Yeah. I missed, I think, 5 or 6 shifts, maybe 7, because I went back in the middle of a rotation. I could have easily gone another 2 days without going back. But I'll tell you this. When I got back that day, I felt fucking incredible, and they had lowered the basketball hoop in the gym to 8 feet, and if there would have been a ball out and the kids were playing a game, I would have dunked on somebody. I was like, when the fuck are they coming up here? Because I want to dunk on some kid. I never got to. But anyways, obviously people had heard that I had COVID. Mm-hmm. One of the janitors made mention of it too. I'm like, how the fuck does he know? Why people?
You know that guy, Jmann? Yeah, he got the COVID. That's why he hasn't been here the last few shifts.
Well, it's funny because after I got it, like a handful of patients got it too. And we have visitors that come in. Right? And it's
a high exposure job, yeah.
So who gave it to who? I don't fucking know. Because then we got the kids all tested the next week and only one of them had it. And it was Chi-Chi, my 8-year-old.
Wow.
And she was pretty much over her symptoms by then. But my shit persisted for a number of days. And that is why I started journaling each day how I felt for people that didn't have it.
Well, I know a lot of people that had it, but they had no symptoms. Big Mark was one of them.
Yeah, well, here's what I put on Facebook when I found out. Who has 2 thumbs and just tested positive for COVID? This guy. Fuck! And then people are like, oh my God, I hope you don't have symptoms. I'm like, I totally have symptoms. Like, oh, I hope it's not that bad.
I know I laughed when I read it, but I don't know if I don't remember if I responded to it.
Rona Journal Day 2. Sporadic single coughs. Chest a little heavy but no temp. My doo-doo browns are coming out looser than normal, and I'm unsure why it looks like I ate kiwi because I didn't. My legs are stiff and it hurts to stretch. I think the virus is trying to turn me into a statue. And my biggest fear is that if I morph into stone, that in 25 years they'll tear me down because some liberal pussy decided that and one basketball shorts on a white guy are a form of cultural appropriation. I was trying to be witty about it.
It's clever. I remember reading that.
my legs felt like they were rocks. The shit was like the muscles, I could not stretch. They were sore as hell. And it was just really hard walking. I don't know what it was. And all I could think about is how many people developed fucking blood clots from this shit and had major complications. Because the last thing I wanted to do was lose a leg. Now, there was some Broadway actor that was married to some actress. He got this shit, and one of the first things they did is they had to put him in a coma because he was in the fucking ICU. And while they were in the coma, they couldn't get rid of a blood clot in his leg. Now, I know this is absolute worst case scenario, and the odds of it happening to me are probably much smaller because I live an active lifestyle, and they said that seems to make the symptoms lesser. But this guy lost a leg. And then later on, a week and a half later, they had to pull the plug on him. He lost his life. But I'm like, I don't want to live as an amputee. Your mind starts racing because obviously you hear shit about this. We've been going through it. The fucking pandemic had been going on for a year already before I caught this shit. And they had already been vaccinating tens of thousands of people. So I've been masking. I'd been social distancing. I wasn't playing it loosey-goosey. But still, yet I caught it, so I got nervous.
I've been relatively loosey-goosey. I've only been wearing masks when I absolutely had to. But, I wash my hands regularly.
Well, right.
So, I mean,
I'm not wearing one around home. Day 3. Spent a great deal of time being a lump in bed and ate pretzel rods. The wife asked me if I wanted any special treat to make me feel better. I wanted the big, gigantic pretzel rods.
Those are fun to chew on.
Day 4. I spent a bunch of time in bed and my back is not having it. It feels like I owe a bookie money and his goons came to collect via kidney shots. Later on, I was at the table and had some coughing fits that resulted in my chest feeling tight like someone was pushing on it. Day 5. Started at 3:30 a.m. when I got up to get a glass of water for my dry throat and realized that it wasn't that my throat was dry, it's that my gums were bleeding in my sleep. Fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Day 6. I slept in, slowly got the day going and managed a leg routine. After a nap and dinner, we took a walk and it felt way longer than it was. Okay, so I was gassed easily. I was taking long naps. I was sleeping probably 12, 13, 14 hours a day a few of these days.
Oh, wow. Even when the worst sick I've ever had, I don't think I slept more than a few hours in a day.
It's amazing how good I felt, though, after those long sleeps. Like, I never sleep like that.
Well, your body does its best defense while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
It can devote all its energies to that.
Day 7. I woke up and then went back to bed for another 3 hours. That's my energy level so far.
I remember that one.
I woke up at like 7-something. I said, fuck this. I went back to bed till 10:30. I don't think anybody was here. Day 8. No need for a nap, and I made it through a normal workout routine. And I got to tell you, I didn't stop working out through this. I worked out every goddamn day to some degree. Whether if I was just taking it on the exercise bike or a walk. I tried to keep my legs going because of the leg stiffness. Kept going for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
There were times I could not believe how few push-ups I could do in a row without having to stop, and how gassed I was when I was done. Like, take a shower, lay in bed for 3 hours. Day 9. Didn't sleep the greatest last night. Worked out and was fine until about 4 p.m. Dragging ass and needing an early bedtime that isn't an option. That was a very hard day. I couldn't go to bed until like 10 o'clock. And I desperately wanted to go to sleep at like 6. I want to say that was like a Thursday when the wife was working. Day 10. I laid on the couch a lot and watched 2 full seasons of Rick and Morty. 3 out of 4 kids got tested and were negative. Positive one had symptoms for like 2 days last week and is already over it. So that's the timetable.
She bounced back.
She did. Day 11. Early morning weight session with lots of EDM. That's electronic dance music, or what people our age would used to call techno.
It's techno.
Come 2 p.m., fun will be over. Back to work today. So,
Pretty simple.
pretty simple. I didn't feel like I needed to go to the hospital, but there was a few days and I was like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I can only take shallow breaths. And I don't know if my lungs were swollen or what the fuck, but it always felt like somebody was pushing on my chest in the middle of all of this.
So it's like, okay, so I know 1, 2, 3. I think I know maybe 4 people that had it. And you're the one, well, Big Mark's dad had it worse. He ended up in the hospital with pneumonia for 2 days.
Yeah.
but then he bounced right back. So, I mean, he had it the worst. You're probably the second worst. The other ones didn't have any symptoms.
Well, I'd like to think that my active lifestyle, because I exercise every day for a good 45 minutes to an hour, that plus my age, and that my job now is pretty low stress, helped me keep the symptoms to a minimum. Otherwise, if I was a lazeabout, like if I played video games all the fucking time and never exercised, I probably could have easily been way worse.
Possibly.
And then I was exercising through it, which I'm pretty sure a doctor would be like, knock it off, asshole, take it easy. And I'm like, no, fuck you. I'm going to sweat some of this out. I'm going to make sure that I keep my strength up some. I ate very little. I had like no appetite. I dropped close to 12 to 15 pounds. A bunch of it water weight, obviously. But also, at the beginning of March, I kicked sweets again. Like March 2nd, I gave up sweets. Like all that shit. So, well, I was pushing 225 when I hit the scale after COVID. I was like 212. I'm like, yeah. I haven't weighed myself since. And obviously, I probably put on a few more pounds of water weight again because I drink 6 or 7 glasses a day.
I was at the doctor yesterday when I got on the scale.
The doctor scale is the least accurate scale. I always tell him, like, knock off 5 pounds because I'm fully dressed and wearing shoes.
I had pants, shoes, shirt, and my motorcycle vest on.
Yeah, last time I went there, I kicked my shoes off. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, those shoes weigh like 5 pounds. And then she wrote it down. I'm like, that's not accurate. That's not even close to what that's easily 15 pounds more than it says on my scale at home that I use all the time.
Oh, I don't know. I have another scale at home, but that was at 228, and I was like, fuck, I'm up 7 pounds.
Well, between where I was at in February on what notch of my belt I was at, I was on notch like number 2, almost 3. Right now I'm on notch 4, almost 5.
I think my belt's stretching because I got a lot of... It's an older belt.
Oh. Well, anyways, yeah, it didn't hit me as bad as it could have. Obviously.
That's a good thing, though.
My folks didn't get it, and my dad was, like, more nervous than my mom was. Last year, she's like, I'm 70 years old. If I get it, whatever. I've had a good run. I don't care. Which was, like, shocking.
That was my mom and dad's attitude, too.
And then this year, knowing that they had been exposed to me and the kids, my dad was, like, nervous and disinfecting the house. And my mom's like, well, you know, we've already been exposed to you, whatever.
See, my mom and dad, my brother and his wife were taking it very, very seriously because my brother had all those strokes a few years ago.
Yeah.
So they were taking it very, very seriously. They wouldn't go near my parents. If they did go to my parents' house, they stayed there for maybe 10 minutes. They had masks on. They stayed like 10 feet away. And they did that for the whole year. So my brother and his wife come up to my house a couple weeks ago for Mrs. Number One Fan's birthday and Mother's Day. And he comes in the house like, God, it feels so weird. I'm not wearing a mask right now because they got their shots. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him. I was just like, I've been living like this way for a whole year.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the one thing is keeping the kids in the house.
I was kicking my kids out of the house. Some of them had friends over.
No, I mean when I had it. When I got my positive test, keeping the kids sequestered from the neighbor kids. And they had gone back to in-person learning a week prior. And that's one of my theories is that Chi-Chi brought it home from school. Because I was fine for a fucking year of this pandemic, and then suddenly I get it once they go back to school, which they only did because
The beast
demanded it, and I vehemently said I don't think they need to, but CPS also thought, with all the stress, they need the socialization. So they immediately were back into distance learning. And I was gone from work for 12 days. They were out of school for like 24 days.
Weird.
I notified the school on the 30th. They did not go back until... They were supposed to go back the 23rd of April. So almost a month. That's how serious they were taking it. And work never made me get another test. The wife, she couldn't stop working. She's like, well, I'm negative. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, aren't you a little nervous about that you were negative? But she's like, well, no, I'm negative. And work knows, and they're fine with me working.
As soon as I tested negative, my work said I could come back because I was exposed to Big Mark. Which I thought it was stupid that it was even considered an exposure because he went and got tested because he found out his dad had it. And I was like, well, okay, I never saw his dad, his dad stays down in the basement. We were upstairs. I was never within 5 feet of Big Mark. We were sitting at the kitchen table and playing a game.
Surfaces. All the surfaces.
His dad doesn't sit at that table. His dad eats his meal at the table in the kitchen. We were in a table that was in the dining room. So it's like, but they're like, well, he was exposed, so now you need to go get tested. Or if you don't have any symptoms 48 hours after, he gets tested or whatever, then you can come back. I was like, I'm not taking 2 more days off of work. I just took 6 weeks off from my back. So I went and got tested and like, look in your face, motherfuckers, and went back to work.
But yeah, that was my COVID experience. I didn't get it very bad, and I'm thankful for that. A lot of people, obviously, had it way worse and have lingering effects. I mean, there's people that have it so bad afterwards that they've killed themselves. There was like one high-profile, I think, Oklahoman billionaire. This guy had tons of money, and he killed himself because he had lingering effects of this shit. Most people I've heard had it very mild.
How old was he?
He was an old fucker.
Well, then he probably just figured, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah. But we've turned the corner on this, obviously, as a nation. And states are scaling back their measures. We don't have to wear eye protection all the time around the patients at the hospital anymore. We can just wear our mask. And who knows when they'll let us ditch the mask.
Currently, we don't have to wear masks, thank God.
At the shop?
Yeah.
Oh, lucky you.
We're allowed to ride in the same vehicle. They recommend wearing a mask, but are not requiring it. And my boss is like, well, I'm not ready for that yet, so you guys are going to continue driving separate trucks. Which, fine by me, man. I keep listening to my book on tape when I'm driving around.
Oh, I would have thought I can just fart with reckless abandon.
So, fuck it, we do that. We're in trucks together anyways.
Well, you never know. Some people, they might get offended by the farts because you're not being civilized.
Yeah, we like to have fun at my shop, so...
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number 1 fan Tim.
And that's the end.